Good morning, interweb. Welcome back to the Artifexian podcast, established 1928. In this month's episode, we chat about your world-building subgenre names, talk about how awesome you all are in the context of poverty is violence, discuss Irish, hear about the further adventures of Yarte Yarton in Cairn. In the green room, we talk about how I am now Mr. and Mrs. Captain, how Peru is on fire, how Georgia is on fire, how my honeymoon plans are on fire, and how musical pedagogy is apparently also on fire. All that, plus lots more, in this month's episode. Wilhelm von Grath. You know, no, I can't just... No. Save it. We'll save it for the show.
Do it. Tangent. Start with a tangent.
I'm not starting with a tangent. Oh, there's going to be so many tangents. Okay, show begins. I want to talk about, Bill, the alt names for world building. I put a call out in the previous episode for names for the subcategory of world building that is world building for world building's sake and without any sort of explicit goal like writing a book, a game, a graphic novel, that sort of thing. We got quite a lot of answers. And I just want to ream off some of them. This is in no particular order. Some of them are obviously joke answers. Some of them are a little bit more serious. I'll read them off and let me know what you think about the bunch.
Sure.
All right. So we have planet building, world modeling, the very brutalist non-story world building, the very brutalist and... multi-syllabic, non-narrative world building, word crafting, lore crafting, geocrafting, slarty Bart fasting, cosmergy, and then the final one, geofiction. And then I also had a thought about something like world brew, but I don't really want to put my own suggestions on the list. Thoughts about the bunch? Anything in there that piques your interest?
I like cosmergy.
Very hard to make a verbal noun out of it, though. Cosmerging.
Cosmerging. Yeah,
Cosmerging.
The reason I like it is because are you familiar with the phrase demiurge? Or demiurge?
No.
Demiurge.
No.
It's urge, I think. So it's from like Gnostic philosophy. The demiurge is the creator god, and it's usually seen as kind of a malign or an evil force, as opposed to like the god of the spirit, that the material world is evil. And it's just it's a nice, I don't know, it's a nice phrase, and I like the resonance that cosmergy holds with that.
Do you know what is the meaning of the suffix ergy? Do you know what that derives from?
I just looked it up.
Fair play.
And it's from the ancient Greek urgos, which is a worker, from ergon, labor, task, or work, from the Proto-Indo-European vergum, which means work. I totally guessed that I pronounced it Proto-Indo-European. Apologies to all our Proto-Indo-European speakers.
Nicely played. That's kind of cool. That is kind of cool. Cosmergy. I think that was Keras Sarian who suggested that one. Yeah, it does have the verbal noun. The lack of the verbal noun is a problem, but it does have, and also I guess one could make the argument it's very grand, and dare I say it, sorry, Keras, a bit pompous, maybe?
Possibly.
I don't know. And also it leads into the hegemony of, it was from the Greek, wasn't it, the suffix?
Yeah.
It leans into hegemony of Latin and Greek, which is something that I don't know, I'm kind of in a hipster phase about and want to kind of like stop labeling everything in Latin and Greek terms.
Go back to Germanic roots.
But not even. I just think like whatever language is most prudent. The thing that springs to mind here is I think in, what's the field called? Like, I guess archaeology. Archaeology is where they dig up like fossils of animals, not just fossils, not just like remnants of houses and stuff, correct?
I mean, I guess animals are kind of relevant to archaeology, yeah. Like, but if it's dinosaurs, it'd be paleontology. If it's fossils, it's paleontology.
Paleontology, there you go. I think I remember talking to Bib about this, and he was saying that there's a kind of a movement away from Greek and Latin, and so you have a bunch of dinosaurs that just have like Chinese names.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're all called lung.
And then there's also, I think some fossils were found up in Scotland, I think, and they were given Celtic names, which I think is cool. It's a bit kind of like aesthetically, it's a bit all over the gaff that everything is kind of not this hegemonic sort of style, but I think it's just kind of cool to not always be Latin or Greek based.
Yeah, I approve.
Yeah, so do I. Now, the reason why, I want to bring up, the reason why I brought this up in the last show was one, because I think a subcategory is kind of, I would like there to be a subcategory name here. And the other one is that it dawned on me a few weeks ago that, you know the way I've got this reference doc for the new series where I put in all the facts of the universe I'm creating.
Mm-hmm.
That reference doc is quickly going to become obsolete. And it dawned on me that I'm going to have to like get a website. Because as I make animations of the world, particularly with the tectonic history and showing those animations, not really that useful to have a static doc. Yes, I know PDFs can contain videos. It's awkward and most people won't be able to avail of that. So just to preempt something there. So I was like, I'm going to need a website. And then I was like, crap, what am I going to call the website? Because I can't use Artifexian because I, like an idiot, called the podcast website Artifexian when I should have called it Artifexian Podcast. So I don't really know how domains and stuff work, but I'm pretty sure I can't just like redirect artifexian.com to like artifexianpodcast.com and use Artifexian as well. So I'm like, crap, I'm going to need to like come up with a new name. And I thought using a subcategory of worldbuilding would be a really cool move here. And possibly trying to get the domain name .art because it is art and I am art, Artifexian. So Starty Barst Fasting .art, that sort of thing.
Could you do it artifexian.art instead of whatever the podcast website is?
Yeah, that's another thing as well, Bill. I should have really done the thing, bought the domain for the Federated States of Micronesia, and then it would have been artifexian.fm, which is just really cool. But I didn't do that either. So I made a serious lapse. I have a serious lapse of judgment when setting up the podcast website. These like 20 years ago at this stage. Artifexian.art, cool. It's a bit like repetitive. art.art. I don't know, but part of me thinks that a subtype of worldbuilding might be fun there. Cosmergy.art, kind of fun. That's kind of a fun website name. So all this is to say, I'm taking on board all the suggestions and thinking about how I might find one that works for both the subgenre and the new website, which will come down the line at some stage.
Yeah, you can't get .an addresses anymore.
Oh, why not?
It was the Netherlands Antilles, and they've been phased out because the Netherlands Antilles doesn't exist.
Oh, what is Toulouse? Is that another place in France?
Yeah. What?
What? Wait. The Netherlands. Hold on. .an.
Yeah.
It references you said the Netherlands and Toulouse.
No, the Netherlands Antilles.
The Netherlands Antilles.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which is in the Caribbean. But it isn't anymore because it doesn't exist anymore.
Why doesn't it exist anymore?
It's organized differently now. It's like I'm not sure exactly what, but it was like this is dissolved and is a direct part of the Netherlands or something.
I thought this was some elaborate joke where it's like that is the name of a like underwater chain of seamounts. And it's like, lol, they don't exist anymore. I'm like, see, I would think that my knowledge of geography is really good, but only when it comes to what is regions that are commonly defined as countries. Anytime you have territories, I don't have a clue about any of them. So yeah, and for all I knew, the Netherlands, the Antilles of Netherlands or whatever, could have just been a series of seamounts, and that's it.
They're now called the Caribbean Netherlands. There we go.
The Caribbean Netherlands.
Yeah.
So you were going for artifexy.art. .an.
Yes.
Yeah. I wonder, can you get like .ing?
Oh, let's find out.
Like Artifexian?
No.
No. Or Artifexian.licorice. Yeah, boy.
Artifexian.edgar.
.edgar. But anyway, yeah, so something coming out of this sort of informal poll that we had about alt names for Worldbuilding, something will come off this. Yeah, my eye has been drawn through to Cosmology. The other one, I think to understand that one, is the one I've literally just been using all the time but failed to realize, geofiction. I mean, that says it quite plainly, like fictitious geography. Makes no reference to like stories, really. So
and the geo itself is the fiction.
The geo itself is the fiction. So geofiction, shock horror, the one I've been using, is actually is the most kind of direct. Geofiction.art. Maybe. We'll see. Okay, so that is alt names for Worldbuilding. Anything else to add?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, so Irish. Can I talk about Irish?
Let's.
Oh, and I have a new thing to add into the Irish section. Putting in the show notes now. Okay. So I suppose I should make that explicit. Wait. There we go. We talked last time about, I think it was last time, we talked about my looking for Irish language groups to like go to and relearn my cúpla focal, right?
Mm-hmm. The Theanga Dúchas.
I don't know what that means.
Your heritage language.
Oh, very good. Oh God, I'm so bad at the language. It's ridiculous. You're so much better at it than me. Oh, crazy. How did you maintain this, may I ask?
I can spoof it convincingly. I'm not actually it's not actually that high a standard, but I'm good at like remembering specific phrases and things. And I can like I'm kind of good at vocabulary when I'm in places. I can figure out what things mean reasonably well. Like when I travel and stuff, but you know, it's largely confident guesswork.
Talk really fast and slur your words, and everyone just goes like, "Oh yeah, that's a native speaker right there." So anyhow, I was talking to a neighbor, and I brought this up because this neighbor mentioned that she talks Irish with the kids. Not that she is a Irish speaker, but wherever possible, she interjects Irish into daily life. So I would imagine it's just a bunch of exclamations, a couple of stock phrases, etc. And that got us talking about Irish. And I was like, God, I'd love to find groups and stuff. And she was like, well, I worked as a librarian, and I think you'll find that in libraries they hold, I think they're called Circle Choras.
Yeah.
Like conversation circles in libraries. And I was like, you're kidding me. Like, and libraries that we have, because again, I'm sure in Dublin, in cities, they have all this. But I was like, well, does our local library have it? And she's like, no, but the one town over does. And it's within comfortable driving distance. So I am making it a sort of like belated New Year's resolution to work a little bit more on Duolingo with my Irish, just to like regain at least some vocab, because I don't want to go in just dry. And then I think I might sign up if it works out, like if it's not on a Friday evening when I stream and things like that. Yeah. I'm going to go sign up and learn a bit of Irish, because that would be cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I've gone to one in Carlo a couple of times.
Oh, now, what was the age group? Or was the age spread in it?
So the last time I went, I was the youngest person there. You know, in my early mid-30s. And the next youngest person there had just come from her exercise for the over 60s class.
Okay, that's actually good. I would enjoy that, because this person, the neighbor, mentioned that like, oh, you can get people who are like 17 all the way up to like 70. And I'm like, I don't think I would tolerate being in a room with a bunch of teenagers who are desperately trying to like get their Irish good for the exams. I kind of much rather hang around older people. So that's actually good news. Thank you.
That's quite all right.
Did you enjoy it?
Yes.
Yes, good. Okay, good. Well, if you enjoyed it, and given that we're kind of similar-ish disposition, hopefully I'll enjoy it. And anyhow, it's not really a case of enjoyment. It's a case of there's a job to be done here, and the job is learn Irish, so just do it. The final thing on the Irish was I was streaming on Friday, and I was doing a Duolingo stream for the patrons, the main channel patrons, and it suddenly dawned on me that I don't remember ever being told that Irish has grammatical gender in school. Do you have a similar experience of this? Or am I just like blanking out phases of my childhood?
No, I remember that we got that.
You got that, okay.
Because the thing I most strongly remember is possessives. And
the genitive,
the mutations work different depending on the gender of the possessor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My recollection is just rote memorization. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, here's what the genitive does. Just learn it for this this noun, and then here's another noun. Learn it, and I don't ever remember being expressly told like there's a sort of pattern here.
Yeah.
Which is mad. And then it dawned on me when I was doing Duolingo, I was like, maybe I should make an effort to learn the gender of these words, because, you know, I unfortunately re-cobbled together German later on in life. And ich habe die Nomen ohne Artikeln gelernt. Das ist ein großes Problem. So I learned all the nouns without the gender. And so I'm constantly saying like, oh, is it der Baum, das Baum, die Baum? I don't know, whatever feels right. Just put it in there and then have the German people cry at my terrible...
Are you going to mass, or are you getting a knife? Who knows?
Exactly. Or are you talking about a lake or a sea? Who knows?
Oh, I didn't know that
there's...
one.
Yeah, it's der Meer, I think, and das Meer, they mean different things. But also German has 3 genders, so you could also just completely butcher it and say die Meer, and it means nothing. Assuming Meer is not plural as well, because then it could mean like the seas or the lakes or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, so I was like, I should start noting the gender. So I started this, right? And I was like, okay, cool. So we have the word Ishka. What's the gender of Ishka? Do you know it by any chance?
I do not know the answer to that question.
Okay, so it's masculine. I was like, okay, cool. And then banya came up. Ishka means water, by the way, folks. Banya means milk. That came up, so I checked the gender of that. Do you want to take a guess at what the gender of banya might be?
This is based on the clues from the form of how this information has been presented. I'm going to guess it's feminine.
It's masculine.
Oh, okay, well, that's good. That's good, okay.
And then the next word came up. And that also was masculine. And then the next word came up and it was masculine. And I'm like, I'm noticing a bit of a trend here, right? So turns out, and I was never made aware of this, that just like the vast majority of nouns in Irish are masculine. Colleen, the word for girl, is masculine. Right? So, and then I was like, maybe
Fantastic.
maybe that is why I don't remember being given a gender talk, because 99% of the time, or okay, not 99, but let's say, I don't know, 80% of the time, the noun is going to be masculine. So you can kind of like cut your losses and just be like, hey, this is the pattern for nouns when it comes to possession, when it comes to the genitive. Just do that. And if you happen to run into a feminine noun, you'll lose a point. Who cares, right? Let's not go through the rigmarole. I half suspect that might have been going on. Because like apparently the pool of feminine nouns is like vanishingly small. All languages, barring English, apparently, are feminine. That's like one of the notable things. And there's a couple of other things that are feminine, but like the vast majority is masculine. And I just find that really weird. And I need to look into how this came about, because like my experience of other gendered languages is that there isn't like a massive swing one way or the other. It's kind of like a fairly-ish even distribution, but Irish seems to not be doing that, which is a bit mad. So I learned something new about Irish, TLDR. Yeah, that is Irish. Final point of follow-up on my end.
Go for it.
Okay, time to get demonetized. I want to talk poverty as violence.
Right.
So, last episode, we, in the context of your world building, we got talking about labeling poverty as violence. And we had a little back and forth about it. And then the debate continued on Reddit for many, many days after the episode dropped. Two things I want to say here. One, I want to give props to our audience. I think this is really important because no one agreed with what we were saying, or very few people agree with what we were saying about poverty being a form of violence. But at no point in the disagreement did anyone who was dissenting become snotty or start slinging mud or calling us names or idiots or whatever. It was like just really robust, vigorous debate occurring, just, to trash out ideas. And yeah, none of the usual mudslinging you see on the internet. And I think that's really cool. And I just, massive thanks to all the folks in the Reddit there. It's great to be able to just do this without the fear of a dumpster fire occurring. So just props to our audience. Mm-hmm. You all are absolutely great. And I don't think in the history of the show, I think I remember one point, I won't talk about what that is, but I think there was one time in the past, what is it now, 8 years maybe, that we've been doing this show. Yeah, where I was like, oh, that person got a bit out of line. But in all that other time, and that one point notwithstanding, everyone's just being really nice to one another. I think that's class. So again, Artifexian, thank you. Y'all are awesome. Continue to be
remarkably
awesome.
Non-toxic fan base. So thank you, all of you.
We do. I think part of that is I think it's the kind of space we inhabit. I think, the world building, conlanging sort of community is just kind of in its nature quite non-toxic. Because we're here for the art. We're not here for, politics or fighting or whatever, Mm-hmm. So, and I also think that having a small audience, a very small audience on this show really helps as well, because the larger you get, if 1% of people are just absolute dicks, you have a massive audience. That 1% is a massive amount of the audience. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, having a nice small audience is cool. So again, thank you, folks. On the actual top point of debate, I'm sure people will be unsurprised to hear this, but I was not moved by a lot of the counter arguments to poverty as violence, and I tried to take a step back and think about how best to, because sometimes when I find when there's a disagreement between people, there's often a buried underneath all the argumentation, there's a fundamental disagreement, right? That is the kernel from whence everything else sprouts. So I was trying to think of where is the fundamental disagreement between the people who think that poverty should be classed as a form of violence and poverty that shouldn't be classed as a form of violence. And I was struggling to put it into words. And then literally just today, I saw a comment from Gil Piff on the Reddit. It was a fairly newish comment. And I think it is perfectly sums up what I was trying to get at. So if it's okay with you, I would like to read this out.
Please.
Okay, so the point of calling things like poverty violence is that it says poverty isn't a natural phenomenon, but caused intentionally by the state. So the exact mechanism isn't quite the same as ordering police to beat people up, but really they're doing the same thing, causing great harm to a population to keep the ruling class in power. Whether that harm is by making people hit them or shoot them or throw chemical weapons at them or put them in jail or make them work for scraps is what defines a type of violence. But they're all violence. And I think that's the kernel of it. I think if one's worldview is that poverty is natural, stuff falls to the ground at 9.8 meters per second squared, and there'll always be a disproportionate class of people who just don't have enough means to survive. If one assumes that is the natural state of things, then the idea of calling poverty violence is absurd. And I don't want to debate if that is one's worldview. I think that's the fundamental kernel. Once you get down to worldviews, it's hard to debate that. So if that is the sort of axiom dissenters might be operating on, then cool. I can't really argue against that. But I would be inclined, like Gilpiff here, to say that poverty isn't natural. It's an induced state, and that induced state causes a lot of the same results of actual physical violence, except and partly I think it's worse because it's more subtle, it's more sly. Like everyone agrees, like exactly, like everyone agrees that running up and hitting someone is real bad, but like indirectly causing physical damage to the person is it's a lot more. It goes under the radar unnoticed. So I think Gilpiff hit the nail on the head. If you see poverty and things like it as being induced states that cause harm, then violence is an apt way of thinking about it. If you don't, then it's not. So basically, yeah. Thanks, audience, and thanks, Gilpiff, for sorting out my thoughts for me. Anything to add on that?
No, I don't think so. I think I thought that was a well phrased response from Gilpiff. But yeah, thank you to the community for being non-toxic. It is greatly appreciated.
Yes, we do. It just makes going into Reddit actually fun. If it was the case that we published a podcast and we just know that there's just going to be a dumpster fire afterwards, like why would we ever want to talk to people?
No, thank you.
It makes it really nice. So yeah, thanks. I suppose actually I have one more thing, kind of related to this poverty is violence thing. I saw in the Reddit, coming from a couple of people, the sort of hesitancy to redefine words, and I think there's maybe an interesting linguistics thing here in terms of like prescriptivism versus descriptivism, and I don't know what sort of point I have here other than like to share how I feel about this. Like I think words are like inherently mutable, like they can change and change radically over time. And I kind of, when I see words being used in a new way or their meanings becoming broader or narrower, etc., I kind of just go like, oh, that's cool that language is doing this. And I feel like some people, and not that this is bad or anything, it's just a different way of thinking. Some people like see that and go, this is like an erosion of the language. Whereas I just think it's an evolution. So I don't know, I guess my slight advocacy piece here is that just always try and be on the side of describing how language is changing as opposed to saying language is like this and it should never change, because it's kind of like evolution will happen. Words will change meaning, scopes will change, etc. So I don't know, revel in the evolution. Is that a good way of phrasing it? I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but I mean, I don't think any objection to any change is necessarily descriptive. I mean, we're active participants in a language, and we can dislike changes for reasons other than prescriptivism. Like you could object to it on grounds that aren't just this is not what that word means. You could object to it on, well, I think it does diminish meaning in this way, or it is an unuseful conflation of two ideas. If you say by using this to mean using X to mean Y, we lose an element of nuance, which I think is a theoretically valid, like in principle, a valid objection to a change. I wouldn't necessarily agree with it in every instance, but yeah, I mean that is coherent to me. It's like, some people get very angry about the erosion of meaning between less and fewer. And I kind of agree that there is a shade of meaning lost if that distinction isn't maintained in certain circumstances.
I guess my response there is one of like, I don't care if the speakers are making this change. Like I don't care if meaning is lost, because there has to be some utility to this loss in meaning. Otherwise, en masse, we wouldn't all be doing this,
But I mean, it's not like a single thing that is happening uniformly to everyone who speaks the language all at once. It is a thing that happens sometimes in some speakers, and some other people don't do that. And as active participants in the language, I mean, I think we get to have a say in what we would like the language to be.
That's interesting. Again, I would be on the camp of like, oh wait, so we're saying we should just use the word less all the time. Cool, I'm on board. I like automatically just hop on board. Maybe I'm just like a bit of a clout goblin here. I just want to go with the in crowd that are changing the language. Just be like, whatever you're doing, I'm with you on that.
Clout goblin.
Clout goblin. Have you never heard that term?
I've never heard the term clout goblin before, Edgar. No.
Is that sarcasm?
No, it's sincere.
Okay, but I mean, it's fairly self-descriptive. It's like...
no, I didn't say I didn't understand it.
All right. Yeah, that's interesting. I think I agree with you that as speakers, we should get a say in how the language goes. It sounds to me that you're defining that on a more kind of individualistic basis, and I'm defining it on a large group basis. So like, I'm saying if large groups are doing X, they are the ones, they're making the call as to how language might go. Whereas I might be wrong, but you're saying more like we as individual speakers can like be like, no, we shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. We're operating, I think, on different scales in terms of how we think about this. I
mean, but like any large group is going to be composed of individuals, so I don't really see a big conflict between what you present as your perspective and as my perspective. It's just like some people are going to do some things, and just because a change is happening doesn't mean that it's a majority change, and just because a change is happening doesn't mean that it has what's the word I'm looking for here? Just because the change is happening doesn't mean that everyone has to like the change. And again, I want to stress, I don't see this as prescriptivism. It is making active choices about what meanings can be. Sure. Yeah. It's not saying that it means this because it means this. It's saying I'm making these determinations on an active basis.
Are you using the less fewer example as just an example, or is that something? Or did you said earlier that you were like, I genuinely think there is a meaning lost here in this conflation?
Yeah.
So you would fall on the camp of like we should probably keep that distinction around.
Yeah.
Okay.
I prefer for that distinction to be present than not, because there is a meaning preserved in it that could be lost otherwise in certain circumstances.
I don't think I have those conflated in my speech, because it's like less water and fewer pens, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that's the thing that I'm doing. At least not consciously. Okay, all right, interesting. I didn't expect a counter view there.
I'm full of surprises.
Full of surprises, always keeping me on my toes, Bill. Okay, follow up done? Question mark?
Follow up done. Full stop.
World building. Let's be having it.
Okay, I'm just going to get straight into it.
Oh, no preamble.
Okay, I can do a preamble. This is a letter. From
a letter?
Shockingly, from everyone's favorite recurring character, but there is a twist to this one. Dear Alette, I will be brief. 2 successful operations have been undertaken since my last communication. Thanks to the intelligence supplied by your scouts, we easily discovered the location of the exchange town selected at our last conference. Destruction of the settlement was achieved as a standard. As far as we could tell, all lives were accounted for, and no materiel was left behind after the engagement. I predict this will weaken our Thani ability to access the Vikal region, as we hoped. The second operation was the more difficult, having never been attempted previously. Shortly after the destruction of the exchange town, I took the liberty of apprehending an Arthani barge a day's travel away from the ruined settlement. No survivors remain to recount this breach of custom and treaty. Understanding the gravity of such a breach becoming widely known, every care was taken at all stages of the operation to ensure secrecy. Having established that this barge was not in convoy, and there were no other vessels in operational range, I deployed a small force of marines on either side of the river to ambush the vessel. The purpose of this ruse was to draw attention away from the skies and covered the approach of our craft, thinking that they were beset by river bandits. The Earthani would not be prepared for the deployment of a battery and further marines and aviators to board their vessel from above. Their defence was spirited, but nonetheless ineffective, and quickly they surrendered their arms. The Earthani's protestations were not surrendered so readily, accusing the crew of my vessel, and myself in particular, of every crime and misbehaviour known to humanity. The captain was killed in the fighting before she had time to destroy her barge's logs, thus these were secured for your use. The Earthani casualties were disposed of overboard, while the surrendered crew were marched overland and executed in a clearing. The site's remoteness should allow exposure to the elements and the beasts of the forest to erase all evidence, and with it any likelihood that we should be connected to the barge's disappearance. The barge itself was towed into rocks and allowed to smash itself upon them, and then sink. Should the wreck be discovered, I expect it will be assumed that the crew deserted the ruined craft and became lost in the hostile surrounding country. All seized cargo from these expeditions will be dealt with by our usual agent in the Usan Depot. Should you require it, I can provide an account of this engagement, perhaps couched in speculative language, for inclusion in company treatises, or for a review of the Commission as they consider how to further pursue this current conflict. I remain in your debt. Contract Captain Yar Teyartlen, location withheld.
Maybe I'm just like tired and or dumb, but where's the twist? What's the twist?
It's not written to his cousin like all of his other letters have been.
Oh God, jeez.
For the first time, we're having Yar write to a different person.
Oh boy, as you're reading, I was like glancing over the text, being like, "Where's the twist? What's happening? Where's the twists? Is the barge logs? What's going on with this?" And then it's just like the recipient of the letter is someone different. Is that notable? Is that a notable thing other than breaking from form?
Just it's a break from form.
Oh, okay. Jeez, Bill, you sold that twist like it was something earth-shattering. Good
No,
God.
I didn't. I just said there was a twist. That's all I said. Any inferences made are the fault of you.
Well, let's start then with this recipient. Who is this Alette character?
So you may recall, and for those who are newer listeners, I will explain. Yar was involved in a scandal and a disgrace, but then was restored to a position of relative notability through some backers and benefactors who raised funds for him to get a vessel and outfit it and become a sort of kind of a privateer, kind of a somewhat independent operator working on behalf of the Tamar Company. Alette is one of those backers. One of his benefactors.
Okay. So he's writing to Alette to be like, these are the fruits of your capital, basically.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. Okay. So Yar talks about 2 successful operations. Operation number 1, let's talk about this.
Okay.
I don't understand what the noun phrase exchange town means.
That is absolutely fine.
Just to quote the actual bit of text here, it goes, "Thanks to the intelligence supplied by your scouts, we easily discovered the location of the exchange town selected at our last conference." And I suppose just as a follow-up, because it's all contained in this one sentence, the phrase "at our last conference," I'd like to hear more about. Is this some secretive thing, like clandestine thing, or is this an official company thing? So what is an exchange town? And tell me more about these conferences.
So an exchange town is where Earthani goods are transported from one river course to another. They're not by Earthani people themselves, but it's a town and the stuff is unloaded that they want to sell, and it's brought overland and given to another exchange town where it's put on another river.
Okay, is this a phrase of your own making, or is this an established term?
It is a phrase of my own making.
Nice. That's kind of cool. And I think such a situation is not a novel creation. Am I
Sure.
right in thinking that Vikings did this? I think you told me that Vikings just like trekked across. No, they themselves took their boats out of the river and just trekked across land sometimes and dumped them in the next river over.
I think there were other people, like locals, involved in the actual portage. But yes, they would carry boats cross country to get to a new river, which just blew my mind when I read that. I thought that was cool.
I know, and speaking of, this is like the third show running, I think, where this has come up, but the show Vikings, I'm still watching it. Spoilers, but again, I guess it's fairly historical, so it doesn't really matter, I think. But
this happened 1,200 years ago. I mean, you can't complain about spoilers.
But I just don't know what is fiction, what is history here. But they in the show there is a depiction of the Vikings attacking Paris.
Yeah.
And failing at the first attempt, or technically the second attempt. And then your man Ragnar, the lead Viking, just goes, we'll carry the boats overland to Paris. And you just see them like these boats being hoisted up cliff faces and dragged along forested countryside. And I'm like, I cannot believe that someone thought that this is a solution.
I don't remember that at all. That's cool.
Well, oh no, it's cool. But like, I would look at that and be like, that's probably a little bit too involved in terms of labor and, you know, human resources. And they had to, like, when they were moving the boats, again, at least in the show, it's depicted as like they chopped down a bunch of trees to make, like, I don't know what you call them, like kind of like wheels. You slide the boats along a pathway built of trunks.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my God. So they were like, we want to move the boats to the next river over. So we have to, like, you know, blitzkrieg an entire forest just to make the wheels necessary to move the boats. And I'm just like, that is insane. But at least in the show, it clearly worked. So it's a good thing. What about these conferences?
So he just means like the last time that he met with his backers and they strategized what Yar's tasks were.
So am I right in thinking that this is pretty clandestine though, because he's operating outside of the companies? This is like a private venture with private benefactors. It's
still for the benefit of the company, but this is not sanctioned or dictated by the company overall. No.
Okay. You go on in this paragraph to say, as far as we could tell, all lives were accounted for and no materiel was left behind after the engagement. Mm-hmm. Assuming that's not a typo because you said materiel. What the hell is materiel?
So it's used in military language as like military equipment, military stuff.
Oh.
So like an anti-materiel rifle is a rifle that's designed to like engage with vehicles, for example,
and
or like emplaced weapons.
Why not use the word material there?
What they're saying, what he's saying is no of their own like weapon stuff was left behind to indicate that it was them that had done it. So that there was no evidence that it was the Tamar company or Tamar company affiliated agents that had committed this violence.
No, I totally get that. But the point I'm making is that the word material also means a bunch of objects. So why the distinction between materiel and material?
Like in general, why does that distinction exist?
Yeah, like in military lingo, why not? Why do they use this word materiel and not material?
Because material could be like any stuff whatsoever, rather than meaning the specific military equipment.
Oh, okay.
So like
okay.
if you say the material could just be like concrete, whereas materiel is like, well, there was a recoilless rifle or there was a technical or something there.
Interesting. I have not heard that term before. Very interesting. God, I learned so much about warfare and like naval culture from you. It's crazy. Next line. I predict this will weaken Earthani ability to access the V-Cole region as we had hoped. For the benefit of newer listeners, give us a sort of orientation about where the Vikol region is and maybe why the Arthani want to access it?
So the Arthani are kind of a rival culture to the two interlocutors in this letter. And they are supplying, or they're believed to be supplying. No, it's confirmed that they're supplying dissidents and agitators within the Abeski culture. So the Vikol region is like one of the provinces of heavy Abeski settlement. The Arthani are river traders, and so they were coming to this town so they could move their stuff to another river and thence into the Vikol region where they could supply things to, or they could sell things to the agitators.
Okay, and right, and I see. So the destruction of the exchange town basically like locks off the other river that enters the Vikol region.
Yeah, probably not entirely. There may be other routes to do so, but it certainly it kind of is an attack upon their ability to their infrastructure and their ability to access Lansk, which is where the big site of uprising is occurring.
Sure. This might be cuttable material, but I'm going to attempt it anyways. If there's a jump cut here, folks, you know what happened. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but what's the deal with race in Cairn, in your setting? I'm suddenly wondering, are the Arthani people a different race to the Abeski? Is skin color a thing here? Because these are, if I recall correctly, these are humans. Like they're not like aliens. Like they're actual humans.
Yeah.
So
very tall
have you
humans,
thought
but
of?
they're humans.
Yes, very tall humans. Have you thought about race and how this works? Are the Arthani people of color, and therefore they are seen as a different culture, or what's the jazz here? Also, if you don't want to answer it because sensitive topic, that's also cool.
No, they're all like there are maybe like ethnic and cultural differences, but they're not so different that they would be seen as radically different races by kind of our understanding of it.
Okay, yeah, I seem to remember actually you talking about. I think you said something more like class plays a bigger role than race as a sort of differentiator.
Yeah, because among sort of the equivalent of the working class among the Abeski, the groundsfolk, there would be significant kind of overlap with the Arthani. Like there would be intermarriage and there would be shared heritages.
Okay.
But no, it's not like they are radically visually distinct from each other on some like obvious physical characteristic.
Sure. Okay, cool. So that is operation number 1, the destruction of this exchange town that stifles the ability of the Arthani to operate to a degree.
Which, to be absolutely clear, is a war crime.
Is a war crime.
Yeah, this is like a totally unconscionable act.
Oh, geez, I would have thought that the second one was the really unconscionable act.
I mean, they both can be.
Well, that's true. I guess I need you to define for me war crime. Are you using the word war crime in the Earth Terran sense?
Yeah, in a more like kind of contemporary to us sense. Yeah. Sure.
So the idea, if I just so I have this correct, the idea is that because this is not a military target, and I'm assuming this exchange town is full of a bunch of civilians.
Yeah.
The wholesale slaughter of this and destruction of this town amounts to a war crime because it's not a military target.
It was an attack on non-competence. Yeah, a deliberate attack on non-competence.
Sure. And that is the definition of war crime, is it?
I mean, I sincerely hope that would be considered one.
Right. Okay.
I am not a lawyer. I am not a war lawyer, but I imagine I feel like I can say with reasonable confidence that it would be a war crime.
Sure, I suppose, and then you're saying that other things may also be war crimes, not exclusively this, but you would hope that this is one of them. Yeah. So the second operation is, if I have this correct, the Yar and his band of bad guys decided to take out an Earthani barge. And I guess the interesting thing here is that he makes a distinction between these two things. You, the author, have said that both are pretty terrible, but it seems to me like the second one is the real terrible one, because he says explicitly, no survivors remain to recount this breach of customs and treaty. So that wording implies that in the context of Cairn, the second operation is an actual war crime. And the other one is just like, well, boys will be boys, fighting occurs, sort of thing. Am I reading that correctly?
Not exactly. It's more that it's been established previously that the Earthani
sovereignty.
Yes, their sovereignty. So this is like what he was doing before is something he probably shouldn't have been doing, but it had been kind of deliberately sanctioned by his backers. Whereas this was him acting off his own initiative and doing something that was kind of seen as beyond the pale or riskier.
Beyond the pale to his backers. Like, is the idea here that Alette there is a world where Alette, the recipient of this letter, will be furious at Yar for doing this?
For the risk incurred, not for moral reasons.
Yeah, for the risk. Yeah, sure. Okay. I'm sure we've talked about this in, again, the 20 years we've been doing this podcast, but...
the Artifexian podcast, established in 1928.
Exactly. The concept of Earthani sovereignty, if I recall correctly, that is an Earthani ship is seen as a sovereign entity, and an attack upon an Earthani ship is the equivalent of like what we think of as attacking a country.
Yeah. Right.
Now, the question then is begged, and again, I can't remember if we addressed this in the 20s, back when we started the podcast. Once the ship is removed from the equation, does sovereignty go away? So as in, if the Earthani people go on land, then they aren't sovereign, I take it. Is this the equivalent of like diplomats? You know, when in real life, when diplomats get into a car, there's like an extended bubble of diplomatic community that travels with said car.
Yeah.
Is this kind of what's happening here? The bubble is around the ship, and the minute you leave that, you no longer have the protection of being a sovereign entity.
I mean, like, yeah, it wouldn't be as grievous a thing for something to happen to an Earthani trader on land as if they were deliberately attacked when they were on their vessel. There would be a customary distinction there.
And I suppose, can you elaborate why? I get that ships are important for the Earthani, but like something being important, I don't know, it feels a bit weird to be like, that's the basis for the sovereignty, or maybe it's not weird, I don't know. Or I suppose to rephrase, it seems a bit weird that the minute an Earthani person or a whole crew of Earthani people just step on shore, you could like drop a small nuke on them, drop a tactical nuke, and everyone's kind of like, well, it's sad. But
well,
like,
no
it's not as bad
no
as
one's going to say that like it's totally fine. But
there's a difference. There's a categorical difference, and I'm wondering why the ship seems to be the differentiating factor here.
Well, think of it like if pick a country, right? Pick two countries.
Okay. Belgium.
Okay.
And Nauru.
Okay, so a Belgian person, a Belgian as they're called, gets killed by Nauruan separatists in pick a third country.
I'm trying to come up with a joke answer here, but every joke answer I can think of is maybe offensive. But I'm just going to go with it.
Ireland.
The Basque country. No, the Basque country.
Okay. So, a Belgian gets killed by Nauruan forces in the Basque Irish Confederacy. Okay.
Sure.
Right. Compare that to Nauru shooting Belgians in Belgium. Those are different scenarios with different implications.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
I do. I do, yeah. The boat is Belgium, is what you're saying.
Yeah, the boat, that is the Arthani nation. Like, the Arthani territory is their vessels.
No. The boat is literally Belgium.
It's the size of Belgium. Yeah, it's the size of Belgium.
It is. It is, yeah, exactly. And there's chocolates on board. Lots of chocolates.
And little detectives.
I don't get that reference.
Hercule Poirot is Belgium.
Is he hell?
Yeah.
Wow.
And saxophones are there as well.
And is that also a Belgian thing?
It was invented by a Belgian. Adolphe Sax
Wow.
was Belgian.
I don't know if this is like a myth. Sorry, tangent alert, folks. I apologize profusely. Don't know if this is a myth. But I seem to remember hearing or reading or seeing a thing where there was like a big classical music had a plot to oust the saxophone. And specifically, I think big classical luthers who, made woodwind instruments and things like that and horns and all that sort of jazz. They saw the invention of the saxophone and they were kind of like, well, we can't let this thing become a standard orchestral instrument because it's going to like take away, our supremacy here or whatever. Like we make the instruments. And because of that sort of concerted effort, the saxophone never became part of the orchestra. Even though I've heard some recordings of like a full saxophone section in orchestral music, and it fits so beautifully, like really fits really, really well. Because, everyone thinks saxophone, they think the jazz sound, but if you give a saxophone to a classical musician, they produce a very, very different type of sound, and it just melds really well. Have you heard something along those lines, or am I just making crap up here?
I think that is essentially correct, yeah.
Isn't that mad?
It was instrument makers are a part of the reason that it never became adopted as a standard orchestral instrument and became more like in military bands and stuff instead.
Yeah, it's absolutely mental that that's a thing that occurred. Anyhow, okay, so no survivors remain to recount this breach of custom treaty. So the breach of custom treaty is referring to this unsanctioned attack on a sovereign entity, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And just reading between the lines here, I'm assuming this was done to further disrupt the ability to trade into the VCall region, because you took out the exchange town. While you're at it, you may as well take out some of the boats. That is, collateral that the Arthani will have to deal with.
Yeah, and I think part of it was just kind of opportunistic and seeking the goods on Yar's part. He just was like, well, we can steal that stuff and we can get away with it, so let's give it a try.
Okay, cool. He's industrious, is our Yar.
That is definitely a word.
That is a word, and it doesn't have any like moral connotations to it.
I don't think it does. No.
Yeah, you can be do bad things with your industry, and our friend Yar certainly does. Now, with regards to the second operation, you talk in the third paragraph here about like he accounts how the battle, if you will, played out, and he makes note of the fact that his tactic was line the shores or line the riverbanks with Marines, make it a ground assault to distract from the aerial assault that's coming. And the aerial assault was like the key killing blow sort of thing.
Yeah.
I guess my question here, from a sort of like how does battles work? Why distract them from the aerial assault? Like, do they have any means of combating, death raining from the sky?
Well, like, he didn't want to sink the thing outright. So he wanted to be able to land people on it, and that would have been more difficult had they been more aware of your. That would have been more difficult had he been more aware of my Christ.
That's all staying in, Bill.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
I'm going to blaspheme.
I have 100% control.
I'm going to blaspheme, so you have to take it out. That would have been more difficult had the Arthani been more aware of his approach, and he would have inflicted more casualties on himself because they would have been able to fire up at the borders. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm getting at. What is sort of firepower here? I'm imagining bows and arrows, and I'm imagining that's not going to do very much against a airship. What is the
No, but
firepower? Have they got cannons?
Yeah, I think they would have batteries, yeah, but
Sure.
they will have to aim that, or they would be able to aim that at the individuals going between the airship and the barge. It's not about damaging the airship itself as much as it is about just avoiding the casualties of his own crew.
But in abstract, I guess, if a Besky airship were to fly over an Earthani boat, leaving aside the people trying to what's the naval term to when you boarding, leaving aside people boarding the ship, the firepower an Earthani vessel has, are they capable of inflicting damage on an Abeski airship?
In general, I'd say not much.
Not okay.
Probably
some.
some.
That's because that's what I was kind of thinking. And because as you're reading, I was kind of like, oh yeah, they might have cannons. But then I'm kind of like, well, hold on a second. If these are cannons in the sense of like ye olde cannons on Earth, at least the way I understand it is that when you fire a cannon, the whole bloody cannon just recoils backwards. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking to myself, if they turn that up like at any sort of angle, the recoil will just smash into the deck and end up puncturing a hole in the deck, particularly if it's at like 90 degrees up. So I was kind of like, it feels like they would just be limited to bows and arrows, or maybe hand guns, if that's a thing that exists in this universe. And then I thought to myself, like, yeah, against an airship, which I'm envisaging as being kind of like very metal clad, wouldn't really do much at all.
Yeah, so I've written about this before. The typical arrangement of batteries on an Earthani vessel is intended primarily to repel boarding attempts or counterattack against hostile forces on land, and is rarely suited to target airborne aggressors. So yeah, they have some degree of elevation, but someone that's like close and above them would be difficult for their batteries to engage with.
Sure. Final line of that paragraph: the captain was killed in the fighting. This is the captain of the Earthani ship.
Yeah.
Before she had time to destroy her barge's logs. Thus, these were secured for your use. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm assuming the use here is just data.
Yeah, intelligence.
What their intelligence? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Brilliant. I guess in the fourth paragraph, this is not unique to your situation, but I always found that the sort of unceremonial way in which enemy combatants are dead enemy combatants are dealt with when it comes to like naval war, just being yeeted off the ship when they're dead, is just always very grim.
Yeah.
Lots of that in Vikings as well. They're just people just get thrown over, and even your own, which I always found really like heartbreaking to watch. Again, the show Vikings, the Franks will fire upon a Viking ship. Some of the arrows will get through, and the living Vikings will just simply take their dead comrade and just throw them off the side and be like, more fighting. And I think that's really grim. A really grim way to go. Now, the final, I got two final things. Last paragraph: all seized cargo from these expeditions would be dealt with by our usual agent in the Usin depot. Anything to talk about with the phrase "our usual agent"? Is this an inside dude who is okay with dealing with these, quasi outside of the Tamar Company dealings?
Yeah, so he's kind of laundering the goods that they can't be kind of directly traced to Yar and to the benefactors. That it's like he's working slightly outside or alongside the system, the normal system for their seized goods.
And again, like, is the problem the reason why he doesn't operate within the system, leaving aside the fact that he's just like had that disgrace and he's outside because of that, the normal system would look down upon this because of the breaking of custom and treaty? Because I'm looking at this being like, the Abeski just like got more materiel, more goods, more resources. They'd be like, great, let's be having them. I don't really understand why standard Abeski practice would be like, no, please don't do this.
Just because they don't want to provoke open conflict with the Abeski. Just it would be an unnecessary complication, an unwelcome complication.
have we not heard of Abeski doing this though?
Attacking Arthani?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. All right. And then the final line, or final thing I have to say about it, should you acquire it, I can provide an account of this engagement, perhaps couched in speculative language, for inclusion in company treatises, or for the reviewer of the commission as they consider how to further pursue this current conflict. Again, is this just we're talking forging documents? Not really accounting what continued, what went on, etc.
Oh, no. So what he's saying there is, I have successfully done this thing that we're not supposed to be able to do, or that we're not allowed to do, and it's supposed to be difficult to kind of get away with. And I've done it. So, I can write an account of what happened here, and if you want me to say like, well, this is maybe an option, and present it as a hypothetical, then I will do that, so that we have the ability to do this again, so other people can learn from my successful tactics here.
All right, so he's writing a handbook, basically, except like a covert thing. But he's writing a how-to.
Yeah. He's offering to present this as a how-to. It's like, oh well, hypothetically, if you wanted to attack a barge, you could do it this way.
But okay, that's cool. I get that.
Yeah.
But is anything that he did like revolutionary? Like he just did a pincer attack. Like, is that surely this would be just if any Abeski just thought about it for a second, they'd be like, oh yeah, that's a way to take out a barge. Is there something in this that's radical on his part?
No, other than having the valor to go and do it. But also, Yar thinks highly of himself.
Right, yeah. Okay, yeah. That's I'm gonna write my magnum opus on this. This is my great contribution to military tactics. Yeah, okay. Cool. And then, sorry, I keep saying final. It's not actually the final thing, but I promise you it's the final thing because it's literally the last thing you wrote in the thing. Contract captain, Yarte Yartlin, location withheld. Anything in the location withheld? Or is that just, in case this letter is intercepted, it doesn't want to be known where he is? Is there any reason why the location is withheld? Because surely this is Alette, his co-conspirator and benefactor. Alette shouldn't really care where he is if he makes it explicit or not. Surely.
Yeah, that's just kind of his standard thing at the moment. Obviously there's much more incriminating stuff in this letter than just the location, but he's just kind of as kind of a rule. I guess a veneer of plausible deniability for the others.
Sure. Okay, cool. That's my point. Have I missed anything?
I don't think so.
Oh dear, this could be another short show.
I think that's pretty comprehensive.
Good. Yeah, okay.
So, you're doing some war crimes.
Exactly. Continuing to do war crimes. I know I asked this a lot, but I'll do it again. Where do you see this going? Because I'm assuming we can't just endlessly have entries of Yar being like, I've committed my 51st war crime. This has to.
Well, this is the first one we've actually heard about.
Right. But what I'm saying is we can't every month now continue with, and here's another account of another war crime and another one. Like he can't for the end of time just be this kind of like a private contractor or whatever, a contract captain going around doing bad things. There has to be this thread has to come to a conclusion at some stage.
Yeah.
How do you see this playing out? Because I guess what I would speculate is that someone in the companies takes note of what's going on and they go, well, hang on now. This bloke, I know he's been through the scandal or whatever, but like we have a track record of him doing all of these things out on his own. We should try and incorporate him back in to the fold, make it official, and utilize that. I could see that being a thing. And I suppose further, I could then see the sort of maybe Yar as a free dude, basically, has all this kind of reign to sort of do these atrocities, and then maybe if he gets refolded back into the system, there could be an element of frustration then that he's been accepted back and he loves that, but also he can't go and continuously murder Arthani the way he has been. So there could be like a conflict of like, where is my life going, if that's the case. I'm wondering, do you think anything like this, or would you have any speculate with me, any further outs?
I don't know. I think another interesting option would be for him to be made a kind of a scapegoat. That, oh no, that wasn't us doing that. That was this guy. And have the people he thinks he's working for turn on him.
That's very good, actually. That's very good. Yeah. And I guess, I don't know if this is an interesting option per se, but it's a thing you haven't leaned into too much. There could be a death. He could die.
Yeah.
I mean, that would, you'd be definitely pulling a Game of Thrones there where everyone's least favorite character, or everyone's least favorite character, just does a Ned Stark, and it's like, oh crap, he died.
Well, it's more of a Joffrey. Because everyone likes Ned, surely.
Sure, yeah. That's fair. Because that is a thing you haven't. It just dawned on me, you haven't leaned to this. People have died, but they've never been kind of like main characters. I don't think. Maybe some deaths are merited.
Yeah, possibly.
And also, I suppose this is not really related to this particular thread, but given that, when one is writing, one can write on broader timescales than, real life. Slightly inspired by Vikings as well. It'd be interesting to see whether or not we get second generations of some of these characters. Like Yar's son, or whoever's daughter or whatever, and how they take the torch up in the name of their parents, or fumble the torch in the name of their parents, etc. That might be a cool thing to explore a bit more, like deeper time. But that's neither here nor there, because it's not necessarily related to this Yar tangent. Yeah. Cool. All right. Green room?
That's green room.
I won't put this on air. Do you have stuff for the green room? You don't. Do you have anything to talk about?
I lead a very dull life, Edgar.
Yeah. Maybe I should have put that in. That's fun. All right. Green room. The part of the show where we don't really talk about anything that is world building or conlanging or general language related. We just talk about ourselves and sometimes talk about money. But there's no money this month. Big news in my life is that I am currently, as of 6 days, I am Mr. and Mrs. Captain.
Oh, congratulations, Mr. Captain.
The marriage finally happened. For anyone who hadn't tuned in previous shows, it was a huge problem getting married to the wonderful Captain, because I was born in Saudi Arabia. That means I have had a Saudi Arabian birth cert in Ireland because of just stupid bureaucracy. In order to get married, even if you are an Irish citizen, you must present an original copy of your birth cert. I was not in possession of an original copy of my birth cert, and it would be practically and financially borderline impossible to obtain an original copy of my birth cert. So we had to elope to England to get married. And that occurred 6 days ago. We were over in England with the family, and we had our little wedding in a whatever registry office in a public library, basically. Very low key. And we're in and out, job done, all wonderful. And yeah, I am now a married man, which is such a weird thing to say, but it's cool.
Are you going to become a total wife guy?
What's a wife guy?
Wife guy is like just a guy who's like really into his wife and like always talking about how cool his wife is and like picking her up. I think you should. I think that would be good.
I mean, that would rely on my talking to other people, which is a thing I don't really do very much.
Okay.
I still find the concept of saying my wife as being just weird. I think the word, I don't know if people feel this way, but I think the word wife has horrible mouthfeel. It's just a bleh sounding word. And there's just, I don't know, it feels to me more possessive than a phrase like my partner. And I kind of think I'm going to stick with that lingo because it's the lingo I'm used to. It's like, Bill, when you, in later life, learn or become friendly with an old teacher of yours, you would have referred to them as sir or miss, I'm assuming, the way I did. And then you later in life, you become friendly with them and you realize that their name is Derek. And you're suddenly like, crap, I have to call this person Derek. And it feels really weird and odd. I don't like it. It's the same thing with this. It's like there's been a change of status. And I'm like, oh no, but my brain is like partner. And partner implies, there's no ownership there. It's like it's a cooperative thing. Like my partner, we're partners in this together. I don't know. I'm having a very hard time using the word wife. And I'm having a very hard time listening to the word husband. It's odd, and maybe time will cure that. I don't know, but at the moment I'm kind of like I'm rallying against that a little bit.
You'll need to come up with you need to world build a new phrase that suits you.
Well, my track record of coming up with new phrases is pretty poor, so I don't foresee myself coming up with a good one there.
That's exactly why I want you to do it.
Fun thing. Given that we know that the captain's father, the admiral, listens to the show.
Oh yeah.
Hello, John.
Hey, John.
Very cute thing occurred. As a total surprise, the admiral. Well,
it's admirable now.
Exactly. Showed up in England as a complete surprise. That wasn't planned at all. We land in the registry office and the person at the desk says, okay, I'm here to get married, or we're here to get married. And she goes, okay, but I need you to turn around real fast. And we're like, what is this like? This is really odd. And so we turn from the reception desk, and then out of a spare room comes the admiral. Damn it. We're sticking with it. And his wife. And we're like, oh my God, what are you doing here? And it was really cute. And then I quizzed him. I was like, why are you doing this? Given that it was expressly that we were like, we want no fuss, no family, just in and out. We don't want to go through the politics of like inviting one group and maybe not inviting the others, etc. And it was really cute. He was like, well, because given that this is occurring in England and Edgar, you've a bunch of family in England, I felt like maybe the captain might be like feel a little bit like lacking family there. And I was like, I never thought of that, and I'm glad you did. So it was very cute. It was really, really cute. And we all flew back the same day, and yeah, great.
Lovely.
No, really nice. The only other thing, like noteworthy news, I have to talk about this in relation to like being married is I'm having terrible woes with a honeymoon bill. That I can't remember. Did I talk about this last time? Did I talk about Peru? Do you remember me talking about Peru?
Not specifically. No, I remember South America being mentioned as a potential honeymoon destination, but...
So I started doing research in earnest for places to go. And I quickly realized Peru is kind of class. And, if one is going to throw money at a honeymoon, Peru is a good place because Machu Picchu and all that. Like on a standard holiday... those things I used to take pre-pandemic, I would never go to Peru. Like it's too far away, it's too expensive, all that sort of jazz. But as a honeymoon, it's kind of like, I rationalize it as this is one big expense, like a once in a lifetime, just go for it. So I was looking into Peru. I had a route planned out that we go see some stuff in Lima, the Nazca lines, Lake Titicaca, Machu Picchu. I had a whole route planned up. I started doing the finances on how much public transport costs, etc. And then I find out at like the 11th hour that Peru is on fire. Like there's massive political demonstrations going on. I don't really know why. It's probably some authoritarian is in power and everyone wants them ousted. And it's so bad apparently that the government have shut down all tourist sites indefinitely. So like Machu Picchu is quite literally closed, which I find really odd given that it's an open site, but it's just like you can't get there and you can't do anything in Peru as a tourist. It's like do not travel there. And so I was like, crap. And the more I researched it, the more I had my heart set on it. I was like, this is so cool. And like the captain was getting into it as well and being like, yeah, this is it. We should do this. This is going to be awesome. And then it's like indefinitely closed. And we've no idea when this turmoil will stop. And so it's like, it's very sad. And then And I was like, okay, well, I can't just wait indefinitely. So let's go to plan B. What's another place that we always wanted to go to? And Georgia was the obvious answer. And it was on my mind, particularly because the last couple of shows, people had sent in Georgian money and people had been in Georgia. So I was like, Georgia. Not as appealing because on an ordinary holiday, Georgia it's financially viable to go to Georgia for an ordinary holiday. So it's not like the big once in a lifetime thing. But I was like, okay, it's a good second solution. Started doing all the research for that, costing all the things, figuring out how much rental cars would cost, coming up with the route, all that sort of jazz. Literally just like a couple of days ago, I was just browsing Reddit before bed. Turns out Georgia's on fire. There's like massive political protests in Georgia for, again, reasons I don't really know, but probably the obvious one. And I'm just kind of like, what is going on here? I was chatting to Zidnaf about this yesterday, and he was like, okay, so whatever you do, Edgar, just don't pick as your plan C America, because it seems like wherever you pick, violent protests just break out. And I would like it if maybe the US didn't have a massive like uprising at the moment, because he lives there, etc. And
it sounds a quiet year this year. Keep 2023 low key.
Exactly. So it's just it's very sad, because outside of that, I'm just those two. I feel like I'm just picking something to pick something, or I should say we, because it's a joint decision, but I've been left in charge with the pre-research sort of thing. Pre-search, yeah. I think I'd just be picking something for the sake of picking something, which is kind of, I don't want to do. Like, I want to go like, let's do this really special thing. Let's go somewhere we wouldn't ordinarily go, etc. Yeah, it's just driving me nuts. And obviously, like, my inconvenience here doesn't matter in the grand scheme of people having freedoms and stuff, but it is fun that the two places I was like, haha, gotcha. It's just like, no, literal, just, it's on fire. But yeah, so those are my problems, first world problems, minor paper cuts, or the fallout of getting married. Beyond that, I have nothing.
On currency, one of my students came up to me the other day to show me a mysterious coin that they had found in their piggy bank. Which I don't know why they did that. I think it was just like, Bill's a cool teacher, here's a cool thing I found. I mean, I've never talked about money or anything.
Kids are weird, man. I used to get like school projects arriving into music class, be like, I made a pot, and I'm like, I don't care. Why is the pot here? We're here to do music. Leave your pot in the car. To just bring stuff like magpies.
No, I love that stuff. I'll be like, oh yeah, cool. Show me things. Things are awesome. But anyway, it turned out to be 100 Bahraini fils.
The hell is that?
So the dinar is the currency of Bahrain, and I think the fils is a thousandth of it.
Oh.
Yeah. So a dinar is like €2.49. So 100 fils is like 25 cents. And it looks kind of like a euro coin. And
with the little silver bit in the middle.
Yeah, it's a two metal coin, which I guess is how it got mixed up into currency in Ireland. So yeah, do we have anything from Bahrain on the Bank of Artifexian map? Do we have any Bahraini notes?
Do not believe so. Hold on, Artifexia money map, Bank of Artifexia map. Hold on, it looks now obviously Bahrain is very small, but it looks like we've nothing from Bahrain, nor Qatar, or possibly the UAE. Yeah, not the UAE, Oman or Yemen.
Kuwait?
No, definitely not Kuwait. I would see it as a little green fleck. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, don't thieve the child of this unique coin. And
I mean, obviously I won't. And also, it's a coin, not a note. So
precisely.
But, I have seen Bahraini currency now.
Very good. On the subject of teaching, can I share what I think you will think is a horrific story?
Yes.
About teaching. So my brother is currently a music teacher, employed by a notable employer of music teachers in Ireland. I'm not going to say who they are for reasons.
Okay.
But I think you know who I might be talking about.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So randomly, he just showed up one day and we're, exchanging small talk. And I was like, how's the job going? And he was expressing his frustrations because he got reprimanded by a boss for introducing competition into the sort of the classroom. Even it's not really classroom; it's like a one-on-one sort of thing. And the idea is that what happened was, if there was spare time at the end of a lesson, or like let's say a parent was late picking up a child, and the impression I got is that my brother would play horse with them. I'm assuming you know what horse is.
I do not.
Okay, it's from the Tony Hawk Skater games is how I know it. It's like you do a little challenge or whatever, and if you fail at the challenge, you get a H, and then
Yeah.
And once you get a horse, you're like, lol, you've lost. And so he'd do little musical drills with them, and they'd like drill off himself and the student, or possibly another student if there was two, and he'd play horse. And from his accounting of it, the kids kind of dug it. But the employer was like that. You can't do something that's competitive like that because necessarily there will always be someone who feels like they've lost or they're losing, and I guess that's a liability because the parents could complain, etc., etc. Which I don't agree with, but I can kind of get on board with. I mean, like, I can see how he comes to that conclusion. Fine. The thing that drives me a bit nuts as kind of like an ex-music teacher was that my brother turned around and was like, okay, so what do you want me to do? Surely you don't want me to just sit there and not like educate the child in these instances. They were like, oh no, what you should do is you should just put on YouTube, and you know those little piano tutorial videos where it's like the keyboard with the neon lights raining down on it?
Oh, I hate those things.
Literally, the word from above was just play the video and sit there and watch the kids. Let them learn from the video, and you do nothing. Now, I am in favor. It is, isn't it? But now I am in favor of using media in the classroom, right? Totally in favor. But like, I cannot believe I have to make the case, or my brother has to make the case, that it has to be supplemented with the knowledge and experience of an actual teacher. Like, you can't just be like, here is a video with tabs rolling across the screen.
Yeah. You're on your own.
You're on your own. It's kind of like, why are they even coming here? Like, the kids could do that at home. And I got so irrationally angry at that. Now, assuming my brother is, I'm probably getting a very one-sided account of what's going on, but like, I've got nothing else to go on. I'm going to assume that that's truthful. If that's the actual case, that is like death to the profession of teaching. And I hate it so much. And it drives me absolutely nuts that that's a thing. Just put on a video. Don't teach the kids for fear of competition. What? Oh.
A good compromise there is do some kind of team game. If there's like, more than say 4 kids. So like, there's not an individual loser.
Yeah, like that's I would agree with that. There are many things you could do, and bottom of the list is don't teach.
Yeah, bottom of the list is put on YouTube Synthesia.
Like, it's just I can't believe. And again, this is like a music teaching organization. Like, their job is, or at least the way my brother's involved in it, their job is to educate kids in music. I cannot believe that the higher ups are making this argument. Like, it's just. Sorry, I'm going to get like irrationally angry about this. And I shouldn't even care. I'm no longer a teacher. I don't teach music anymore. So it's, it's not my world anymore. But, yeah. I don't suppose have you experienced anything like that? Because I know you have higher ups with your music teaching. Have you experienced any calls from higher ups that have kind of been of the ilk of like an anti-pedagogy sort of thing? Without making specific reference to anyone, obviously.
No, I don't think so. I think in general, I've been pretty happy with my bosses and their feelings about teaching, and I've generally been pretty supported.
Great, and you can kind of do what you kind of want in within reason.
Yeah, within reason. Like we have kind of in the various settings that I work in, we have kind of goals to work towards, but we're given autonomy in how to achieve them.
Good. That was the best thing about being completely self-employed as a music teacher. It was like I did what I wanted. And if the parents didn't like that, it was just a simple case of like, well, then I'm not the teacher for your child. Here is a list of some other notable teachers in the area. I loved having the freedom to do that. Because I don't know, it's the way I work. I cannot stand higher ups telling me what to do, particularly when the suggestion is a load of nonsense. I'm very kind of like headstrong. I don't work well as a team. I'm not a team player at all.
Maximum two.
Maximum two. Like we get on fairly well, but I think we get on fairly well in doing the show because like we don't really dictate anything to each other at all.
Yeah.
And it's always just like, I've had an idea. What do you think about this? And to be honest with you, Matt, you're really cool. Most of the time you're like, yeah, sure. like how about
it's
we
true.
do
I am very cool.
You are very cool. Like, how about we do cooking? And you're like, sure. And like, how about we review some books? Sure. And there's very little pushback and stuff, which is absolutely wonderful. Because if you were the type to like want to impose your will, I can't see this podcast wouldn't have lasted 70 years, basically, if that was the case.
You let me write my silly little stories about bad guys and flying airships, so you know it goes well.
See, and that's the thing though, like I feel like I kind of live by what I preach, because like I never give you any sort of input beyond like hypothesizing on the show, but I never like off air go, okay, Bill, like we really need to move away from like stop writing about E. Cairn. You need to start writing about something else. Or do you remember you wrote about the other planet with the giant bird things, harpies or something? Was that E. Cairn?
E. Cairn had the big bird things, yeah.
What was the one with the polar continent? You did a polar map.
That's Janspar. It's Janspar.
Janspar. Like I'm not being like, write about that. Stop writing about this. I'm just like, yep, we both decided that story time is cool. You have free reign on stories. You are the expert for your world. I'm not saying anything. Just, talk to me. That's it. I think it's the way it should be. But I think too often people are just kind of like, no, my opinion is valid. Bill needs to hear my opinion on prose, which is just not something I'm interested in doing. Right. Shine. Show a on show. Show?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tá show Creekna. No.
SEO for it.
Who knows? Irish photography is a disaster.
No, it's not. It's brilliant.
It's we can't get into it now.
Okay, put that in the
show notes.
Show notes for the next one.
AP 76. Beautiful and consistent. Well, it's not consistent. Like nothing is consistent. To be fair, it's not a designed. It's a natural thing. So it's always going to have inconsistencies. Yeah. Okay. Why Irish orthography is awful? Question mark. Okay. Cool. We will debate that next time. All right. That is the show, folks. Thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon. Thanks for being in Reddit. And again, to reiterate, just thank you for being sound. Even when we say things that you disagree with, we're never shouted at, and that's just class. So seriously, keep it up. Y'all are wonderful people. This is a wonderful community. Until next time,
Edgar out.